Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the third and final UC Irvine School of Medicine Dean's Distinguished Lecture Series for the 2025 academic year. I'm Dr. Michael Stamus, Dean of the School of Medicine here at UC Irvine. The Dean's Distinguished Lecture Series was established in 2019 to bring together influential leaders from healthcare and academia to share insights, experiences, and anecdotes with our faculty, staff, students, and community members. The intention is that each year we will have one speaker representing innovation in basic sciences, one speaker on advances in clinical medicine, and one, like our speaker this evening, speaking to developments in clinical research. I'm honored to welcome tonight's speaker, Dr. Adrian Hernandez, a renowned cardiologist and internationally recognized leader in clinical research, ranging from clinical trials to health services and policy research. He will be sharing his insight, experience, and vision in his presentation titled Speeding Up Science, How Everyone Matters. And it's hard to imagine a time when we need this information more than right now. I ask that you hold your questions till the end of the talk. We will have microphones and we will have Q&A, and if we're all cooperative and calm, Dr. Hernandez will stay afterwards to ask her any additional questions that might come up. I see a lot of young scientists here in the audience tonight, which I'm delighted to see. So welcome, everybody. Before we get started, please be aware this lecture is being recorded, and the full recording will be available on the website soon, so that people that can't make it here or that want to remember what they heard or missed can refer back to it. And so without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Daniela Boda, who is the School of Medicine's Vice Dean for Clinical Research, Professor of Neurology, and Director of the UCI Alpha Clinic, to the podium to formally introduce our speaker this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Stamos, and welcome everybody to our Dean Distinguished Lecture Series. It is my great pleasure to introduce you an accomplished cardiologist and clinical trial leader. Dr. Hernandez will be sharing with us tonight his presentation titled Speeding Up Science, How Everyone Matters. I do believe this is going to be a very engaging and, as the Dean said, a very timely talk. Dr. Hernandez is the Vice Dean and Executive Director of the Duke Clinical Research and a Distinguished Professor of Medicine at Duke University School of Medicine. His research ranges from clinical trials to health services and policy research. He oversees the DCRI to ensure success in a broad spectrum of clinical research programs, clinical trials, educational programs, and to expand the mission impact. He is an internationally recognized leader who has significantly improved population health, healthcare delivery, and quality of care on local, national, and international levels, often through clinical research. Dr. Hernandez has over 800 published articles, oh my God, and he is an elected member of the American Society of Clinical Investigation and Association of American Physicians. For the one or two people in the room that have not heard about DCRI, I think it's the time for all of you to be amazed and for all of you to recognize what powerful accomplishments clinical research can bring to our society. As we say at UCI, clinical research can save lives. Please join me in warmly welcoming to the podium such an accomplished physician scientist as Dr. Adrian Hernandez.
Hey, thanks so much. All right. Hey, well, thanks for such a warm welcome here. I've really enjoyed my visit to UC Irvine, and so I've been really impressed about the esprit de corps that the community has coming together to advance health in so many different ways, through education, through the care that's delivered here, as well as the research that's being done every day that's cutting edge. And also just the example of this room, bringing the community together. So one thing I do need to start off with as an ask is, are there any high school students in the room? If you can raise your hand. So afterwards, if you could take a picture with me, I need to inspire my kids. I have a junior in high school, and so I'm sure there's some things that you can probably share in terms of inspiring him. But more importantly, I have an 8th grader going into high school, and he needs a lot of inspiration. And so he often spends a lot of time on sports, and I tell him it's actually okay to embrace books, reading, and science. So hopefully you can give me some advice after this. So what I'm here to talk about is there is a lot happening in the world, and there is a lot of interest in speeding up science and why everyone matters, why we all matter in some way. First, I have a pleasure of working with a lot of different groups, so these are my disclosures here. I want to start off with a question just to get a sense of where people are. Have people here in the room, you or your family, participated in research? And just a show of hands, has anyone participated in research? Okay, that's a lot of hands there, that's good. And did you love it like going to the dentist? Was it uncomfortable? Is it something you enjoy? Like Disneyland is around the corner, I understand. You know, is it like Disneyland? Raise your hand. Oh, okay. Of course, the dean says that, yeah. Or did you love like going to your favorite performance or game or event, family event? So I see some nodding hands. And the dean is saying, of course, it is like family fun. So if you go across the US, it's often more like going to the dentist. I'm not exactly sure what traffic is like here. I understand that it's still occasionally a headache in the area. And so what does research often like? It's getting stuck in traffic, being late for an appointment. I'm sure that never happens in this area. And then you get there, and you're waiting and waiting in a waiting room, and then there's someone else who is actually supposedly helping you through the research process, and they're just staring at this computer. I've been a research participant before as well, and my parents have as well, and we've all had different experiences. And even myself, when I was going through a research program not too long ago, they moved the site I was supposed to go to. I get there, I'm lost, because there are like all these new buildings and new construction. And because I was sort of connected, I knew this IPI, and I could call him by my cell phone and say, hey, I'm really trying to be a good participant here, but you're making it really hard. Like, where do I go? How do I get there? And then as I was going through the process, like I was getting the same questions asked of me 3 different ways, as opposed to using this thing called a cell phone, where I could just actually answer the questions online. I was like, there's a lot of things that we can do in a simpler fashion, and only make sure to do the right things at the right moment. And so we've been on this journey of really trying to see how we can change that. And so, but it's going to take all of us to think about what that can be. Now, the agenda here is simple. I want to see how we can go back in time, go to present, and then think about the future here. So I'm going to start off with a case in 2004, talk about something that's been happening in this past year, and then think about the future. So let's meet a patient in 2004. And this case is a 54-year-old gentleman, so actually ironically the same age as me, has history of hypertension, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, has a family history of cardiovascular disease, then developed stomach pain, and went to the chest. And back then, the state-of-the-art was getting on a treadmill, an exercise test, get on a treadmill, have EKGs placed on you, pads, they measure your electrocardiogram, and while you exercise, and they increase the duration of increase the speed of the treadmill as well as the height, they can see if you have potential heart disease. And it was stopped suddenly because of something really abnormal on the EKG that is typically a sign of actual heart attack happening right then. And then a few minutes after the test, this patient collapsed, searing chest pain, so kind of god-awful chest pain ripping through their chest, and has sudden death. Just collapses. They try to do CPR, and doesn't come back. Now, turned out like this case was actually an unusual sign of a heart attack that some people back then, or most people, should pick it up in terms of the type of heart attack was happening. But there were some nuances that these folks didn't pick up, and so they missed it. Now, it turns out this case could have been prevented in a lot of ways. And nowadays, like, this should be unheard of because of technologies that are available here. Now, why this turns out to be personally important was it happened 2 weeks before my wedding, and that was my uncle. He was a judge in Alabama, and he was, all excited about coming to my wedding 2 weeks later. And so that just is a case that, like, every time a physician has something that kind of burns through them and say, how can we change this? This is one of those. And so over the last 20 years, I've kind of seen like how the opportunity for clinical care and research coming together, how we can take technologies that are being invented in an engineering school, understand that's nearby, bring them to practice right here on the front lines. And so that's what we want to do always. So I'll show you what the state-of-the-art technologies were back then, and that's a typical picture. Someone getting on a treadmill with these pads on, measuring a bunch of squiggly lines on that paper. And if anyone has seen those old EKGs, they're actually kind of hard to interpret at times because there's a lot of artifact and noise there. But that was the state-of-the-art screening for heart disease. Now think about other things that are state-of-the-art. Have you all heard of this thing called the Facebook? Not Facebook, the Facebook. So February of 2004, the Facebook was invented in a little dorm room in Harvard. This other thing on here, which was an old-fashioned earbud using Bluetooth technology. This thing that's now essentially gone away called Skype. And this other thing that is highly miniaturized and digitized in everyone's iPhone and iPod. Now, think about where we are now and the speed of technology that's happened in everyday life, for social life, for entertainment, for communication. And we're actually now in that same kind of speed or acceleration in terms of science and what can happen over the next 10, 20 years for a number of reasons. So just imagine the speed of those technologies and apply them to health. So why is science speeding up? And I think there are a number of things that are happening right now. And I'll just note there are some things that are very much at risk if we don't have collective voices saying that science matters, and the things, if we don't do things today, we won't necessarily just lose dividends tomorrow. We could go back. So there's a program called the UK Biobank that was started over 25 years ago, and a lot of the fundamental in the United Kingdom with 500,000 pioneers, volunteers who joined, who donated their data, their blood samples, agreed to be part of periodic testing to essentially help identify what are the genetic causes for a variety of diseases, what's the interplay with the environment, other health choices that they may have, and literally go from head to toe about discoveries that can turn into drugs or devices. And for the first 10 years, they really did nothing but just make sure that 500,000 participant cohort was able to do the study in a high quality way. And they were so religious about it that the data from that has been really outstanding in terms of applying to all sorts of things across biomedical science. In the US, we have this thing called the All of Us research program, and UC Irvine has been a great participant and leader in that. And its goal is to enroll 1 million people across the US. And the reason I bring this up is that what the UK Biobank with 500,000 people has done for the world, all of us, is something that can be transformational over the next 25 years that will speed up the science. And so it's integrating things from head to toe in terms of social, genetics, behaviors, and other environmental factors here. And it's open to all. So high school students could actually be able to access the data for all of us through mentorship programs. And it's something that can power the future. Now, normal drug discovery and development takes actually literally decades, from the initial finding in a basic science lab to actually getting a drug to a person. And one of the clearest examples of how that's really shortening is that the pace of biomedical science, for a variety of reasons, is going so fast that now it's possible to go a decade and change. And it's not even possible to think about that getting shorter. So there's a Nobel laureate, Jennifer Doudna, and a colleague who discovered a fundamental part of science around gene editing, which was, I'll just say, a serendipity of science. They were actually chatting over coffee about their different research interests and discovered that they had some common interests that had nothing to do with really human health, but essentially how different microorganisms actually were able to repair their own genes. So anytime you think about getting sunburned, I know that doesn't ever happen, sometimes people's genes get broken, and there's a system that actually helps repair it. They discovered that system, and they translated that gene editing possibility through other avenues to turn into the first drug that can cure sickle cell anemia, something that has a lifelong disease historically, that has lots of health problems, that leads to a shorter lifespan for those who have it. Now, if you think about all the genes that are out there, those that can directly work on a rare disease or a common disease, now you have a tool that can actually engineer something that can change it to hopefully improve someone's health. You can also do things that you wouldn't think directly related to a gene connecting to a health problem, things that in other areas has shown to be protective. And this is just a map of all the different possibilities for doing those kind of things, plus all the other things that are happening right now. So everyone in this room have a smartphone, I assume? Okay. Has anyone ever used any of the other parts that are not part of the phone, like listening to music, surfing the internet, actually walking, tracking your walking, your steps, all these different things? That can all be incorporated in terms of understanding someone's health. And I'll show you some examples where actually just how you speak also can be able to do that. So now I want to turn a little bit to why we all matter in science and ask you a question. Can you count? This room of really smart people, raise your hand if you can count. Okay. Okay, let's do a test to see if this is real or imaginary. How many legs does this elephant have? Maybe I'll pick on the dean. How many? Four. Okay. All right. Is this photo? This photo isn't moving, is it? Or is it? Let's see. Raise your hand if you feel like the photo isn't moving. It's not. Okay. Really? It's not moving. Okay. Well, these are examples where people can see different things, but you're actually seeing the same thing. And one of the challenges for science is that you can have two observers interpret things differently. And so one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we add rigor to science. And the way we often do that is through clinical trials, where we know there could be two different observations, but we want to make sure we take care of all the other X factors, all the other biases that someone may have. Now, I'm a Duke basketball fan, and so I naturally see only dark blue. I don't see light blue. And so if someone comes in for an interview and they show up in a light blue tie, like we kind of cut it short. And there's this other thing for years, for decades, in the last century, where there was a lot of snake oil being sold. Like we saw all sorts of things being sold to the public saying this is the greatest cure. And so several decades ago, the FDA was strengthened to ensure that whatever we got as a drug, a device, a test, had rigor, had something behind it that said, this works as it should. And that's the notion of like trust but verify with data. And just how you all had differences with those optical illusions, we can do that when we are looking at different parts of the elephant. We may see something that others don't see. Others may see something that we don't see. And so in science, we can have diseases, we can do an intervention, and then we can say that actually changed that. But that may just be coincidence. And so what we like to do is actually make sure over time, when we do an intervention to improve someone's health, we like to do it systematically. And so preferably across thousands of people. And we like to do it systematically in a way that our biases can be confirmed to go away. That we're not introducing a bias of how we observe something. We're not introducing a bias that someone who's part of a study there. And this has happened in areas that you'd be surprising. That was really, it seems so obvious. So an example is there was a lot of theory about high blood pressure in terms of the nerves that can cause high blood pressure. And if we zap those nerves that are near the kidney, that we could cure someone's high blood pressure. And so there were a series of studies where that was actually done. You zap the nerves, an interventionalist goes and does that. They would zap the nerves, and their blood pressure would go down. And then there was a study that actually had so-called fake or sham zapping, and it showed no difference. They did actually a clinical trial. Now, it turned out that the technology was actually on target, but it wasn't actually ripe for actually routine clinical care. And so they went back to the drawing board, improved the technology, and did the proper trials that then proved that the better technology could do that. And so now that's available. Knee pain. Again, an example where you can go do a procedure and remove some tissue that's in the knee that looks out of place, but often that may cause so-called a placebo effect, and so someone's knee pain gets better, but actually it really had nothing to do. They were just getting care. They were getting the mind. Can be a special place in terms of improvement if someone's caring for them. When they actually did the clinical trial, randomizing patients to eliminate that bias, they actually showed there wasn't a lot of benefit in many cases. There are definitely some, but in many cases. And so these are examples where we could get led by an inferior technology if we don't do the right studies. Similar thing, and I'm going to upset the cardiologists here too. So there's some other famous studies where, and I love it because they'll show a picture look, see on this panel A, that blockage, we opened it up. You got a beautiful picture on the right. See how pristine it is? I'm sure you never did that. Never. And so while it does open up a blood vessel, these are coronary arteries that feed the heart, it turns out that that a lot of people's heart disease actually comes from the parts of the vessel that are not actually fully blocked, because it's a systematic disease. You have blockages, small blockages layered throughout the coronary bed, and so just opening up one part may not actually help people live longer or without a heart attack. It could help with symptoms, but again, it kind of makes sense when you look at that, hey, that's a no-brainer. That should actually help someone out. But it depends on what's actually going on for them. For heart attacks, if it's happening right then, that certainly could help. So now I want people to think about, how to get to scale. Now, Orange County has 4 million or so, 4 to 5. Okay, so you should be able to do this tomorrow. But I had a patient and also someone who was one of our trials ask us, hey, why are the clinical trials so small in cardiology? And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Typically cardiology trials are really big. And we're planning this trial of 20,000 people. And he's like, why is that so small? And he's like, didn't you tell me there are millions of people with heart disease? I'm like, yeah. And it's and you said people are dying of this every day, every second? Almost, yeah, almost every second. But not quite, every 30 seconds. It's why is it so small, 20,000? And you couldn't understand why the system doesn't go fast enough. Why shouldn't we just have people every day as part of research, that they're advancing the health from someone else? That people often will agree to donate organs. That's a pretty big step. Family members making tough decisions at tough times doing that. So why not donate a little data for this? And so if you just imagine heart disease, more than 13 million with heart disease, about 800,000 heart attacks, things that typically take 5 years, 4 years, 7 years, we should be able to do that in a year if we got to scale to every one part of research. And we could get faster answers, especially as the science is speeding up, how we get more people to be part of it. And this is an example, if everyone with heart disease was part of a platform. Just think about everyone's part of a social network sharing information in a secure way that could improve everyone else's health. And they could opt in for all sorts of things if they developed a problem. And you could elect to opt in for being part of what's the next revolution for diagnostics. So could you detect heart disease through your cell phone or your smartwatch? There are a lot of interest in terms of drugs that are over the counter that we may not have discovered that they have another potential impact. There's all sorts of things that could be done with new drugs, and people could elect in which ways they want to do that. Now, part of the reason why this may not happen right now is concern about trust in science. And in the right now, and this is from 2023, I don't think that it's probably any better, but the U.S., which should be a leader, is honestly middle of the pack. I mean, you look at some of the countries ahead of us and trust in science, I think that's not exactly where we want to be. And only 38% trust in science a lot. My guess is this group trusts science a lot, but there's the majority that we need to help out in some ways of understanding where science plays a role. And if you do public polling, 8 in 10 say clinical trials should be part of routine care. There's always something that we can do better. There's always a clinical trial that can help someone out. And there's no actually political differences. Both Democrats and Republicans respond in the same way. It should be part of routine care. But most actually never get approached. It doesn't come up in the conversation. So how we change that's important. Now let's turn to a patient in 2025. And I want you to meet Doris. And she's a 68-year-old woman with high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, comes in with shortness of breath, during her daily activities, has some swelling in her legs, some heart rate problems, gains weight, and she gets diagnosed with heart failure and gets a treatment plan with these medications and gets information on her prognosis. Now, all this was done automated. For those who are on Twitter and are clinically attuned, there's a famous ophthalmologist north of here, and he has different caricatures of people in medical practice. One of them is a human scribe for ophthalmology. Now, at Duke, we don't have those things, but now we do. And this past January, we started something with a company called Abridge. I understand that there's some interest here for that. And I say that that's transformed what people do. And so what it is actually literally someone goes into a clinic visit, a physician with their iPad or their phone, and they turn on an app, and they have a conversation with the patient. They interview the patient about what their health problems are, and then they go on their merry way, and it spits out that note I just showed you. Literally, like describing in much more detail than I had on that slide that's abbreviated, with a treatment plan that was discussed, and prognosis, if you mention it. And so it's changed our care at Duke from primary care to subspecialty care. And then now, you can imagine, as people have seen different facial recognitions, like I think everyone probably uses some type of technology where the technology recognizes your face to open up the phone. Similar technologies can be done for imaging to make things more accurate, make things more consistent, and also help physicians focus on the hardest problems and let the routine things go through. People are all interested in these concepts of large language models, ChatGPT. That technology has been around for a while. It just started coming up 2 years ago. But in the New Yorker, as an example, they were noting in 2019 how to create articles automatically. So we're seeing this every day. And so you can see how that can start translating to everyday healthcare, and also think about how it can translate to helping research. And this is where voice to text, so the Abridge example happening, but also now being able to pick up when someone has a voice disturbance from a cold, or if they're having lung problems or heart problems because they don't speak correctly. Or maybe it's Parkinson's. So early signals that people can pick up through just voice to text and other ways. So I'm going to go. So just gonna go one more case here, but now I want you to go in 2035, and this is a 45-year-old, comes in with shortness of breath, or calls, reports shortness of breath. This is North Carolina, in Orange County. I don't think you all have cigarettes here anymore, but in North Carolina, they still smoke, and it's still forecasted they still will smoke. And so this person has a family history of heart disease, lives in an area in North Carolina that's highly prevalent for genetically caused heart disease. Now imagine in 2035 that this person that lives about 3 hours away from Duke never comes to Duke. That we can have a test kit delivered at home that day. Does anyone have Amazon Prime? Has something delivered that day, where they pull out a box, they put this thing on their chest to take a look at their heart, and they get diagnosed with heart failure, with a special type of heart failure, and then automatically gets a treatment plan and gets everything coordinated locally through their local physicians and clinicians, but augmented through Duke Digital Health. All this is feasible and is in the works in so many different ways. And part of that, though, is also having everyone be so-called part of the process early on. And so one of the things that we've just started recently is called One Duke Gen, where we're aiming to get 150,000 people have their genomes sequenced, so that not only can they help the future of health for people like them, but also actually maybe for them in the future as well, their family members. And so that's just starting to get to precision health. And what we hope is that if we get 150,000, can we get to 1 million and then 10 million, which is a state. And then you're able to start doing all sorts of things to actually detect disease before it happens. Why wait until someone comes in the hospital with a heart attack? Why wouldn't we just prevent it at home? And so be able to imagine that in so many ways. And so think about someone's healthcare is like being able to pick up, knowing what they're at risk for at their baseline, in a more refined way than has ever been done, because understanding their genetic risk, their family risk, their environmental risk, and then be able to pick up signals of health problems before they actually feel it. So the examples there are no one, if they could avoid a certain route in traffic, would wait to see the car crash. If Google Maps said, go this direction to avoid a collision that's 5 miles down the road, no one wants to see that there's actually a car wreck. They'll go ahead and take that. And so how can we also do the same for health? But that requires large-scale research. The other thing is possible now, and I understand there's a big initiative that's been a real leader in the field, is actually around gene therapies. And so I highlighted what happened a decade and change. Now imagine molecular surgery centers. And so in the olden days, this is an article in 2000, all we could do is divide people up based on their heart disease and say, like, you have a really bad prognosis if you have this. You have a really good prognosis if you have this. But sorry to say, we can't change any of it. It's just how it is. And that's how it was in 2000, based on different types of heart disease. Now gene editing may offer a different opportunity. So like being more precise in terms of what someone may have. So if they were coming in and having their genome sequenced, be able to take a technology that can apply to multiple conditions is now emerging to be possible. And so the same technology can help address ultra-rare diseases. And so this is an example for something that's really disabling, where people get swelling of the eyes and throat unexpectedly in all sorts of ways, and can be very disabling, to rare disease like sickle cell disease I just talked about, or something common like high cholesterol. And these are all examples of areas that are in development now and getting closer to people. And this just highlights all the different types of studies that are growing across different spaces. And so you can imagine a day where people go in for so-called molecular surgery to actually prevent them from developing a major health problem. Now, the one thing, and this is why it's important for everyone to be part of this effort, is that research is about discovery. And it sometimes doesn't work out. It requires humility. And so even the best concepts may not always work out. And so we have to be all together in doing this. And there's a famous case in 1990 of one of the first gene therapy studies that we didn't have all the different parts of the research ecosystem connected. And unfortunately, this was a case where an early death happened, and it set the field back. I was actually a young cardiology fellow, the first case was actually opening up the opportunity around gene therapy. In '98, I was a cardiology fellow a resident interviewing for cardiology fellowship, and they were telling me about how gene therapy is around the corner. It just happened that the corner was really long. And in '99 was a case where there was a famous case in Philadelphia where an unfortunate 18-year-old died. And it shows that we have to be humble about research, but we have to understand their benefits and risks. But if we want to continue to advance health, the more we participate, the quicker we learn, but also doing it in high quality areas is really critical. And there's also going to be controversies that come up. So for gene editing as an example, there's been concerns about editing in areas that may not actually offer a health benefit, or could be done in cases that they have other choices. And so there was a famous case in China where someone edited babies that didn't need to have gene edits to prevent HIV transmission. There's also scenarios where someone could say, well, we understand the genes that help people need less sleep. And so for some cases, hey, well, if I could get by with less sleep, maybe that's a good thing. But if you're talking about doing gene editing for soldiers for less sleep, that's probably not a great thing. So there's this balance, and this is why communities matter in terms of this engagement of what's going to be best for society over the long term. And a famous meeting just had its anniversary 50 years ago, from 50 years ago, where in 1975, a group of leading scientists were worried about the advances of biotechnology that was just starting back then. And the examples were that we take for granted now, where their technologies were coming together to develop something called insulin that could be used for diabetes. And they were worried about how fast that could go. And so they were very thoughtful by engaging the scientific community, the clinical community, and the patient community about what are the constraints that we need to have. And a similar thing just happened about what are the risks and benefits for different technologies that are here today now. And so this is why it's really critical for everyone to be part of this. So I'll just close up sharing some of the things that we're trying to do to help this out. And we formed an alliance here with multiple groups to try to advance genetic medicine together. And it's really trying to bring different stakeholders and research, health systems, and regulators and payers together, and so that we can commonly address common problems. And so it's really just starting, and so we're hoping that this can help add some guidance around these areas. The examples here for gene editing is that it's really a really permanent therapy. So it's like getting a hip replacement for a gene in a way. It's a surgery, it's a long lasting. And so there could be desired effects and there could be off-target effects. And so we need to make sure we understand those issues. So now, a bonus, just to finish up, let's meet a patient in 2050. And now this is gonna be both a good news and bad news thing. The American Heart Association just recently was part of this group that tried to project the future in 2050 about what things could look like for heart disease. And there's a mix of good news and bad news. Now, on the good news front, there are things like high cholesterol that are forecasted to go lower. We have new therapies that continue to evolve, and people are doing better with that to lower their cholesterol, and that translates to improve cardiovascular health. But in the red, there's this thing called obesity that looks like it's growing. And so that can translate to worse outcomes. But we now have some new therapies that are coming online that can actually help address that, not just help people look better and feel better, but live better. And so hopefully all those things will come together to so-called bend the curve, because if we don't change the curves for some of these things, we will have major cardiovascular health problems grow. So in summary, I just want to say thanks for everyone coming together here, and I hope that people can understand the speed of science is accelerating, especially with places like UCI, and we all need to be coming together to help make sure that continues to advance. The more who participate, the better we are. We'll get faster answers. And also the more who participate, then that actually helps engender trust, which is a concern right now. And preventing health problems is going to be pretty key. And so there's going to be technologies that allow us to do that. And then hopefully, like you all are participating here in this session, that we all can be ambassadors so that we can champion health and improve science. All right, with that, I'm happy to answer your questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much for this insightful journey through the past, the present, and hopefully the future of medicine. I'm trying to think about how things will gonna look on 2050. And the young students that will gonna hopefully at that time be our healthcare providers and take care of us. So that's going to be an amazing time. Also, I'm wondering, when you talk about gene therapy, as you mentioned, and the cost of gene therapy, which we know many times is prohibitive, versus the cost of interventions for obesity, which are also in a different way prohibitive. How do you think that we're going to be able to balance the society demands to cure the few or to cure the many?
Well, actually, the example for sickle cell gene therapy is actually a positive economic story. And so because of that disease affecting young people and how it affects avoids multiple hospitalizations, other things, that the formal economic analysis is actually positive in terms of societal benefit, at least for our current standards. And so I think it's interesting from a society point of view, gene therapies actually could offer a lot. The interesting thing is the stock market doesn't actually think that, because that one-time cure isn't necessarily the best business model for certain areas. So, but I think for society it'll be good.
Questions? Please raise your hand. Do we have a microphone? Oh. Let's start there.
Yeah, so that was a great talk. I had a question for you. So, over the last couple of years, there's been this dichotomy between science and information on the other side. So, do you have any thoughts about how we can inform the public better about science? Because I think that's been one of the challenges probably over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's often local politics matter. So I use my example where I grew up in Texas, a place called Port Arthur, Texas. And so while, I think we often have the great ideas that are coming from Duke, if it's not coming through local clinicians, it won't really matter. And so that's an important thing. So local politics matter. And so making sure that, clinicians around the U.S. have all the right information that's easy to translate is really important. And now we're often seeing people consume information like, my kids through 1 to 3 minute sound bites or different small packets of information. So like making it consumable will be really key through trusted intermediaries.
So Adrian over here, that was a great question. And I think it dovetails into the question I was going to follow up on. And information is part of the game. But the other issue that you tapped on at the end is really about trust and establishing trust and kind of where we are in our national ecosystem right now on that score. How do we not just convey information, but reestablish trusts in a way that's going to be meaningful for these incredibly exciting initiatives that you talked about today?
Yeah, so I think one, there are a few key things. One is like transparency. So like what do we know and what do we don't know? I think sometimes like there are people who can be very enthusiastic about their science. And so they may not actually say like, hey, like here's the positive things, but here's all the other things that we don't know. The second thing is that, it's interesting when we're training young clinicians, one of the things that often comes up is that a patient really, they need to have confidence in their care. And so like, how do you balance that confidence in their care? Like saying like, hey, we know the best answer for you, which is like, it's the best answer for you. It may not be the best answer for someone else. And also there's uncertainty around that. And so how do we balance that out on an individual basis at scale? It's really important. So I think transparency of what we do and don't know is really key at the individual as well as the larger level.
I think we have a few questions from our students.
Hello, yeah, so I just wanted to ask, do you believe that stigma around clinical research and AI could be a determining factor in why it may be difficult to get a larger sample size for research? And how could we, as younger individuals, advocate and aid to dismantle the stigma surrounding these to be a part of the larger movement of togetherness in healthcare? And do you know if there's any movements currently being made to help reverse the stigma?
Well, it's interesting, like in some areas, like I would say that's not a stigma, but we don't honor the people who are part of this as pioneers. So, if we were thinking about people who are joining clinical research as pioneering the health for others, there'd be no question. It's like, hey, we're going to send this group to the moon to be pioneers. Like everyone would understand that. We're going to be pioneers to advance science. So helping people be honored that way, I think, would help with that question. And I have a lot of hope for the future through young eyes and young minds. I think many people, and I see this all the time through our Duke undergrads, they come in and they don't think they're going to change the world. They are. And so like, I think that's the spirit that we want to see.
Hello. So my question is, well, we know that healthcare today is unaffordable for a lot of demographics in the US. So in your projected future of like in 2030 or 2035, 10, 15 years from now, how do you project the implementation of AI and technology will affect the economy or the cost of healthcare in the future?
Well, I hope it makes it a lot more efficient. So, right now, almost 20% of the national GDP is devoted to healthcare. And a lot of that is actually spent on, I'll just call it administrative waste, to be blunt. There are things that we have to churn out that keeps us away from patient care. And so if we can be smarter about what we do when, AI is going to really enable that. And using the example that literally started in January, that's transforming our clinical care practice. We can see more people. We can be with higher quality care. We should be able to get more efficient and doing so.
That was a great talk. I'm over here. I really appreciate you having the film of the Syllabar, as I spent a lot of years at various conferences there, so thank you.
Yeah.
I hope that you realize that science and trust has a lot to do with the COVID vaccine debacle, and that's going to take a very long time to undo. But what I really want to focus on is your AI scribing. As somebody who just got a wonderfully digitalized phone call telling me that a week ago's program had been canceled and was postponed, something I didn't have tickets to in either event, on my phone, and that when I look at some of the AI transcribed anything, it's got errors. Exactly what would you propose to make sure that, number one, people who have not the bell-shaped curve, but the ends of the curve diagnosis are seen rather than go through an algorithm, which is what AI does? And what would you do to ensure the integrity of the conversation and the note versus what happens? I mean, we all have smartphones, and you see, everybody has seen the autocorrect become, like, I didn't say that. So if you could address those concerns, I'd appreciate it.
I think of this as augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence. And so any clinician's going to be able to, they should be using the information to assist them, but it shouldn't also be overly reliant there. And so I think that's one of the key things there. And so our standard is people still need to review the note, but taking away 20 to 30 minutes from someone's day to type out something that can be essentially the first draft of that, within seconds, and also characterizing it, capturing the conversation in a better way. I think that's a really powerful possibility. The other thing that I think also is that it can actually broaden out the potential diagnoses that we may have missed. And so in my own scenario, I tested this out where I was traveling. My wife calls with an issue with one of the kids having a fever, a rash, and a cough that's getting all worse. And I'm a cardiologist, I have no idea. And so I call two people, one an adult infectious disease doctor and another a pediatric infectious disease doctor. And then I pulled up an AI tool called Glass AI to give me a quick differential. And that was more complete and faster than my two colleagues who kept on asking me all sorts of questions, and I sent the AI tool a picture. Now, it didn't tell me what to actually do. I trusted them about what to do. I wasn't going to trust a computer. But you see how it can help speed up things, and it needs to be considered in that fashion.
So I think we are taking the last question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I want to ask about what's your vision about telehealth in future care as access to care and impacting outcomes. In 2019, I proposed telehealth to increase access to transplant care. The leadership didn't like it at all. I was from different university. When the pandemic happened, great idea, submit NIH, got funded right away. So, and all my work done around telemedicine. And as you know, the Congress, there was debate about renewal the waiver, and still temporary waiver to extend telehealth for non-rural area. My question is how do you envision that as future access to care and impacting outcome, and how our leadership should, try to address this issue?
Yeah, so I believe in personalized care, so I think telehealth is an option for personalized care. Now, whether reimbursement practices get changed, so it can get reinstituted in certain areas, that's obviously dependent on payers to do so. But the reason I say that's personalized care as being an ability is that for some people, going into clinic and having a direct conversation with their clinician is where they feel the best. And that's a trade, that is something, they're willing to trade off time and traffic or parking, et cetera, for that personalized experience that way. And others, they don't want to have that trade-off because they actually have other things to do. And so my parents kind of represent that. My father's a social butterfly. Anytime he can go somewhere, he will. My mother is I don't want to bother with all that if I can just do this way. And then I'll just give you an example personally. So I have twins, I have 4 boys and twin boys that have autism. And so one of them, one of his physicians that he sees, has actually been virtual for years. And actually for him, the telehealth visit, the FaceTimes essentially, is actually an easier interaction for him than going through all the clinic. So that's why I think it's hopefully going to grow and be personalized.
So let's take a round of applauses for our speaker and all of those wonderful people participating on his trials.
And we have a small token of appreciation for you, Dr. Hernandez.
All right.
Thanks so much
Great.
for sharing with us your wisdom and your experience. And it just says UCI School of Medicine, Dean's Distinguished Lecturer.
All right, excellent.
We've got a box and we can
Oh.
Let's take our name tags off. It looks nice for the picture.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much. Awesome. Thanks.
I want to thank our fabulous audience tonight. I also want to thank a few people who helped to make this possible. I don't know if Errol Arklick is still here, but Caroline's here. So Beal Applied Innovation, the hosts here for the event. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate that greatly. And all the people behind the scenes in my office, especially Alondra Garcia, Kevin Wynn, Matt Miller, Emily Dawidoff, Jim Swinson, Teresa Waters, Claire Draper, and the rest of the team. Hard work is much appreciated. Thank you so much. And finally, again, thank you all for attending tonight. I think you made this a great success, along, of course, with our fantastic speaker. And we'll continue to bring you speakers from industry and academia who are making their mark on the world of healthcare. Thank you again for joining us.